All right. Well, I'm Sean LeBaron, and this is Veterans in Foreclosure. Today, I've got a special guest, Kunal. He's from the Subto group. And today, we're going to talk about specific wins with PML, or private money lenders. So I'm so happy that you joined me in the show. How you doing today?
Doing good, sir. How are you?
Oh, great. It is a wonderful Friday, so we'll take it. The weather's perfect.
Yeah.
So before we jump into the specific example that I know you're going to talk about, tell me a little bit about you and how did you become interested in real estate and when did you become part of the Subto with Pace?
Sure. Thanks for having me on your show. Yeah, I'm a little background, born in India, raised in Africa. I've been in the US last 21 years. Project engineer, project manager by day. And I think in the last 3-4 years, I've become more interested in real estate, just studying different entrepreneurs, online, YouTube. Probably maybe more the Corona pandemic plunged me into all of that. And once I got my green card a couple of years ago and got married, had a daughter, switched jobs to something more family friendly, then I was like, okay, I got to start making that passion work. And so I joined a local RIA. This was prior to Subto, started engaging the community, all the things I had learned from other people on YouTube and stuff. And then I joined Subto somewhere in July. So it's a little over 2 months now. So
Very cool.
that's the quick synopsis.
Yeah. And what area are you in?
I am located in Little Rock, Arkansas.
All right. Perfect. Okay. So what do you think it was about Subto that grabbed your interest?
Yeah, as I think I had been studying Pace Morby videos for a while, like most people. But of course, the climate that we're in, which is high interest environment, I was like, what is a good mentorship? Definitely want to be in real estate, but what's a good mentorship considering the environment we're in, right? So obviously, Subto is necessary for the high interest environment because why would anybody want to give up that low interest? And then if you're an investor and you want to get in, as we all know, with Subto is low or no money down, what better way than locking up your own cash or capital, which is the traditional route. So there was the videos. There was I think I had actually just how you get these promos. So I went ahead and signed up on one of the promo thing to be contacted. And I was coming back from a work trip in Tulsa, and then one of the associates calls me, and I honestly wasn't expecting it. But as he walked me through, I said, "Okay, it's now or never."
Yep, I understand. You jumped in with both feet.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, after you joined Subto, so you've only been in a couple of months, and yet you have a great success story. So walk me through it. We want to talk about specifics instead of just like, I got a PML lender and I bought this property and I made $1 gazillion. And everybody goes, okay, great. What did I learn from that? So yeah, walk us through what your thought process was, what steps you took, and how other people can duplicate this.
Sure. So is it okay if I give the background on the deal first?
Please do.
Yeah. So the good thing is, the classic thing is network, network, network. Your network is your net worth. And I saw that in real time because after I joined the community, going through the videos, the Zooms, I'm like, what do I do? How do I find my first deal? Well, thankfully, I was already part of the local RIA. And one of the unicorn agents there reached out to me and said, hey, I have this Subto thing deal potential that we could either do a private partnership together, or I could just assign it over to you and you could take it from there. So that was about a month into the mentorship. So the lead technically came, now that I know all the terms.
That's right. That's right.
Came from a network, right? Networking, classic networking, and
Right.
it was a unicorn agent. And but I was like, well, I'm still new. How do I get someone to help me comp it, assess it in real time? So I'd heard about Arnie Newton, who did a deal with Pace and Abraham, their first deal, I believe, in Arkansas. And I reached out to him And the day I reached out to him, thankfully he answered. I was like, hey, would you be willing to go to this property with me? And let me backtrack. Before I went, called him, I had a guy, local guy here, that all he does is he goes and looks at properties, gives you a very quick initial report. And it's only $50 an hour for his time.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, what's that going to hurt? Right. So he'll
Right.
give me, like, he's not trying to give me an inspection report, but he's going to give me a quick rundown. He does this like the back of his hand every day, has done it for the last 10 years.
Right.
So he'll give me the big ticket items for repair. So I
Right.
had a pricing estimate for the repair. Right. But I need
Okay.
someone who's done the deals to kind of look at it and just say, get their gut feel about it. So anyway, Arnie meets me the next day. He meets me. I contact the unicorn agent. Unicorn agent arranges for me to get in there. We meet and we're looking through the property. And Arnie's like, man, this is good. He's looking at the neighborhood. He's like, this is a great deal, bro. This is a great deal. And I'm getting inspired by his confidence.
Yes. And
I
and
have
let me
like
confirm.
zero
So
of my own as far as,
right,
feeling
the
great about it.
referral came from the unicorn agent. Now the unicorn agent is not part of Subto, correct?
Not currently, though he has
Okay.
done some too.
All right. So, but it all started because you joined the local real estate and you started networking. You started talking to people. So even before you knew all the terms and you knew everything, you just went out there and did the most important thing. You started meeting people, and that's the most important thing. So then, when you had questions about it, then you reached out to an expert who's in your area that is in Subto.
Correct.
Correct. All right. So then you guys went over to the property. He started getting excited. You started getting excited. So great.
Yeah.
What happened next?
And then he's like, oh, you can use my contractors, this, that, that. I was like, oh, I need all the help. I need help. I'm happy to admit it, And I know nobody likes to want to hold somebody's hand, but I was like, part of joining the community reason was sort of this, So
They
I'm
give,
already
they give, and they give. Yep.
Yeah. I'm already feeling the benefits of it, right? And so I was like, oh man, thank you. And so then I jumped on the underwriting. Bo, has the underwriting Zoom, and I was like, okay, let me run the deal by him, let him scrutinize it. And he loved it. He corrected a few mistakes I had made in my spreadsheet. And then he's like, okay, the cash on cash looks good. Everything looks good. And then next day was supposed to be a Friday. And I'm thinking, there's this thing called deal or no deal.
Right.
Which,
Before
again,
you
it's
get
all
there,
sort of new to me.
Yeah, before you get there, I just want to clarify, because I like to take things step by step for people, especially if they don't understand. So basically, you can come on and you can Pace has arranged for his guy, who he pays tons of money, to underwrite your deals.
Yes.
Right. It's all part of the Subto community, right? You get on there, you get on the call, you take a deal in there, and Bo will underwrite it and decide whether or not this is, good or bad, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So Bo liked it, which he got excited, which is hard to see, right? Because he looks at stuff all day long. Okay. So then after Bo liked it, you now had, your Subto leader in the area liked it. You had Bo that liked it. And so then what was your thought process on what did you do next?
So Arnie, true story. Arnie's like, well, I've got some PMLs, but you should see if you can pitch it to Pace and Abraham, because obviously they want to also partner with students. I was like, okay. So all this is sort of semi-new and all flying into me, right? And
You
it all
got the fire hose you're
happened.
drinking from.
All happening in a week. And then so the Tuesday we look at the property, I think Wednesday or Thursday underwrite it with Bo, and then Friday is deal no deal. And so I was a little nervous, and I told Arnie, I said, Arnie, do you want to pitch it for me? And he's like, no, bro, you're gonna pitch it.
That's right.
And
That's where
was inspiring. Yeah,
that's where the giving stops and the starting to do works for you. You start, he stopped. Perfect.
Yeah. And so he was on the call though with me, thankfully, and he heard me pitch it, and Abraham liked it, and we can go through the numbers. But then once Abraham liked it, then my confidence went really skyrocketing, And I was like, okay, all the gurus like it, then I must be doing something right here,
Right. And so at this point, you've come along, you've got all these people that are in Subto that are leaders and experts, and they've looked at it and they like it. And at this point, if you had not had their help, what would you have been able to do?
Well, I had my own money, so
Mm.
I thought, I could sink my own money. But one of the things Pace tries to encourage you is the whole concept is wealth slash, investing without cash, or no money down or your own
Using
money, other
using other
people's money.
people's money,
Right.
leveraging
So I
other
was like,
people's
let
money.
me
Yeah.
see how long I can really go with this, right? I could lock up my,
Yes.
I'm happy to lock up my money because I have the ARV in there. There's some, if I pulled it out, I'll get my own money out.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like, okay, let's see how this works, right? Which is what Arnie was also encouraging me. Use the mentorship for what it is, right?
Yes.
And so once Abraham liked it, he said, okay, send me the details by email, right? Because this was all over Zoom. So I sent, and then over the weekend, he emailed back and he said, oh, this is good. And he approved it. So then he passes it on to Molly and her team. And if you want to explain that, which is the TC community.
Right, right.
And,
Yep.
and
Molly's recently come out with her course, the top tier TC, and you got to get certified through that. By the way, my wife went through that and she's now a top tier certified TC. So I'm very proud of her. Thank you,
yeah,
Jolene.
that's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
And so am I. And what was cool about that was I was already in Molly's class. So once Abraham liked it and he sends an email to Molly and her team, then Molly's all excited for me because she knows me from our class. So it was really cool.
Perfect.
And here I was like, okay, I'm going to do my first deal, but can I be my own TC also? But obviously, I wanted to learn how they do it. So I said, no, we'll pay for it and watch how they do it so I can learn under my own deal how the TCs are sending emails, protocol, all that good stuff. So then it started there.
Perfect. Okay. So far it sounds like you paid for a membership to a community and you started doing what you're supposed to do. You reached out to people, you made um, all kinds of connections with people. And when you had your first deal or lead, really, at that point, it was a lead that was thrown over to you, you had the help because you had made these connections. And then you did what Pace has set it up for with the community. Instead of going and just posting in the group and saying, I need some PML, somebody
Right.
want to write me a check, right? You took it and now you can say, okay, I've taken it to underwriting. I've taken it to
Right.
deal or no deal. Molly in the TC group has looked at it. So, what's left? What do you need next?
Now you need the money
Now you need the money. Yep.
for the closing and for entry fee and for rehab.
Okay.
So so what happens is once they agree, I was thinking, uh, okay, if I have to bring my own money again in my brain, I'm still kind of catching up. I was like, well, worst case, I bring half of what's needed. So this might be a good time to go through the numbers. The
Yeah.
PITL on this property was about 566. It's about a 1,300 square foot home, and where the area I'm in, $1 per square foot is average. So you can rent up to 1,300. We know that. So you have a good spread of cash flow, anywhere from $600 to $700. So even when I was talking with Abraham on Deal No Deal, he was saying, okay, even if you borrowed the whole thing and you gave some interest, which I'll break down here in a second, of the cash flow, you still can have net plus $200 or $300, which in the world they are in, they're happy with that. You and I
Yep.
may initially not be happy, and I'm happy with it because initially I could care less about the cash flow. It's just going through the process, learning, getting the experience, getting a whole Subto deal from beginning to end, just the whole experience working with contractors, all that stuff. So for me, I'm not like, if I get great cash flow, wonderful. If I don't and it's good enough, no problem. That was my
Right.
my thought process.
Right.
So
Well, and
from
so
there,
far, yeah,
yeah,
I was
go
going
ahead.
to say, so far, you are looking to, we talked about leveraging and borrow other people's money. Well, I have a saying, it's borrow other people's knowledge and
Mm,
skills. And so really that's what you did. You used, I don't want to say none of your own knowledge or skills, because obviously you had
yeah,
some, but essentially, you
yeah,
leveraged other people's knowledge and skills, and you went on to leverage other people's money. So as Pace calls that, right, it's a free property,
right,
right? Even though, like you said, you could structure it with your own money and maybe get a little more cash flow, but then it's not free. You had to put money into
right.
it. So
Yeah.
I have been guilty of that. I continue to buy properties with my own money, and someday I will figure out how to get all these steps right, which is one of the reasons why I love talking to you, because I can see where where did I fall down? And I think part of it is a mindset. I've been used to, 25 years. I always paid paid for my own properties. I borrow money from a bank or an institution, right? And now I need to learn that it's just about borrowing all the money, and at the end of the day, you get cash flow.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
then
you gotta.
it goes into the TC hands, and then I
Okay.
started getting the whole process of contracts and everything. And then at least the way it works in Deal No Deal and Pace and Abraham's world is then one of their coordinators would arrange and pitch the deal out to the community of PMLs, and then it's sort of like a first come first serve, but they've got a long line.
Right.
So,
It's like a built-in Shark Tank where now you've got all these people on the other side wanting to take the deal.
right, it's because
Very cool.
it's been scrutinized for underwriting.
Yes.
So
Underwriting, it's been through, all the top people have looked at it. And the thing is, you didn't have to go and pitch it at this point.
Right. Yeah.
That's
And
nice.
but I was about to get some more experience, which is after the first interest came in of somebody who could. I had to get on a call with the PML and walk through the same thing. I mean, they can see it all, the numbers. They say forward me, the email, forward me the
Right.
details and all. But they want to see your credibility as a person,
Yes.
as an individual, and they have the right to vet you. Are
Yes.
you relational? Are you trustworthy? Trust is still being established, is still being built, but in those moments of connection, you're building that trust as well. And the credibility element. The nice thing, which we joke about, but we use also, is if Kunal totally screws up, the way the JV agreement is, then it's all on Pace and Abraham, and they carry it. So
Yes.
in a sense, the PML feels another layer of safety. And
You
that's
were
the
now,
truth of it.
you were now leveraging,
Right.
Pace's credibility.
Correct.
So first, you're leveraging other people's skills and knowledge, and then you're looking to leverage their money. And in the end, you actually leverage Pace's credibility. So
And he wants you to.
and what?
And he wants you to.
Yes, he does. Yes.
Yeah.
So none of this
Kind of him.
is against what he's showing. It's exactly what he wants you to do. It's just that you've done it so far. You've taken it step by step by step, and everything is just lined up. The stars have lined up. Everything sounds great. So, okay. So you talked to that first lender. He talked a little bit about the credibility and such. And so what happened there?
Oh yeah, and then she was like, it turns out it was the one who's gonna be like the community's what's the right word? The new thing that's coming out now for
one of the leaders. She's going to end up being one of the leaders.
Yeah, for vetting people who want to borrow from PMLs, and so they have a borrower's passport. Came back to me like a due diligence expert.
Right. So in a sense, you were the one of the test guinea pigs.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that.
You didn't even know it.
I didn't even know it. So, but anyway, she liked everything she saw. I sent her everything she required, and then she said, "Okay." So she was gonna send the PML money through her trust. Where she has some money. Some people have it in a Roth, a 401k, different ways. You just have to work with the TC and the person, and of course title for wiring instructions and everything. So that was the first side of the PML. So yeah.
Very, very cool. So yes, all the paperwork has to be right by a certified TC. Make sure that everybody's protected. Everybody's expectations are the same. Yep. And it's kind of like I tell people, you need to plan the divorce during the honeymoon. Right. So
Right.
it doesn't, and that's when everybody's at their happiest. It's like, yeah, we're going to get in this deal. We're all going to make $1 zillion, right? It's like, okay, let's sit down and plan the divorce. What happens if this? What happens if that? Let's lay it all out. Let's write it out. And then it's like, well, that's not going to happen. Great. That's not going to happen. Let's write it out anyway,
Yeah.
So yeah, perfect. So you leveraged all that knowledge, skills, money, and credibility. So
Mhm.
what's left?
Yeah, so now basically the last 2-3 weeks we're going to be closing on Tuesday. All of it has been, paperwork back and forth. We've had in this property, what was the case was, so it had the 566 PITI, but the 1300 LTR rent. But the where the some of the money gets eaten up, so to speak, is the arrears. So on paper it was 12,000, but then when you actually asked for the true arrears that are due, it was 13 something.
Yeah.
Another lesson I learned was when they ran title, there was a judgment lien that was on there, and this person the seller had taken a personal loan from a different community bank. And last week, talking about leveraging another person's expertise, I called Arnie again. Every time I get in trouble, I was like, Arnie, what do I do?
Arnie.
And he's like, try to negotiate it down, because you don't want to use up your war chest so quickly. You still have repairs coming down the road, right? And so anyway, so I called the paralegal, and she was one of those people who's like, "What do you want?" And she's like, "I can't talk to you. The seller has to give permission, and I'm leaving for 2 weeks vacation in an hour. You better hurry up." I was like, "Oh man!" So I'm scrambling. I'm calling the my unicorn agent to call the seller. The seller then calls and gives permission. I call back. She's like, "Okay, you can't talk to the bank. You have to go through me." Okay, I'll try to give you a discount. We went back and forth. So she knocked off $1,400, which was nice.
Off
And
of what was the total?
well, it was 3,800 something with
Oh,
interest
okay.
and everything.
Yeah.
So considering that the original arrears went up from 12,000 to almost 14,000, then you have another 3,800. So
Yes.
anything you can shave off is good. So back to the numbers. So the idea is that the original mortgage, what's left was about 94, 95. Let's just use 95. Then by the time you have 20,000, we kind of put the high end number of the repairs. We don't think it will be that much, but we're just saying worst case. So that puts you at 115. Then we said for the arrears, the closing, 5,000 to the unicorn agent. That's another 20,000. So that puts us at 135. ARV is close to 160. So if worst case worst, pull out your money, pay everybody, you're good to
Right.
go. So but we know it's going to rent, so we're not worried about that. And like we said, there's enough cash flow that if you borrowed between the two PMLs involved, even on Abraham's side, they're using a PML, so I had to speak to that PML as well. So if you borrow 20,000 and 20,000, you're paying $100 per $10,000 you borrow per month. So if you borrow
1%
40,000,
interest.
pardon me,
1% interest.
in that sense, but in the annual, it's 12%.
Correct. 1%.
So right, so for every $10,000, it's $100 per month, so 12% for the year, simple interest. And so for 40,000, it's $400 a month. Now 566 plus the 400 puts you at 966. You're getting up to 1,300. You throw in a little bit for vacancy. It gets tight. It can get tight real fast. But again, that was when you look at it. Abraham and Pace, they're getting properties also for depreciation. They've got so much business going on that for them, one of the reasons they're high-end investors. So one of the reasons they want property is not necessarily for the cash flow, though they love that, is to get the depreciation to offset all the other income that they're making from their businesses.
Right.
So anyway, so that's kind of where we are on this one right now.
And you took this as a sub 2 on top of that, right?
Yeah, it's all sub 2. Yeah.
So the interest rate on that was what?
Oh yeah, thank you. It's 3.125%.
So, I mean, if you went out to the banks nowadays, you said, "Hey, I still want that 3.125 you used to offer. Can I get that?" Not so much.
I haven't given anybody any documents of mine. So
Right.
come and ask for my social security number, tax documents. What's your credit score? None of that's happened. Where can you get that?
Yeah. And how old is the loan? How long did they have it that you're assuming?
So you can get it for a year or up to 2 years. and then you can renew it if they're comfortable renewing it, you know.
Right. No, I
So-
didn't mean for the PML. I meant for the loan that you were doing the sub two on. The sub
oh,
two.
sorry.
Yeah.
That's, I think it's a 30-year amortized, and they have like 28 or 29 left.
28. So it's fairly new in the process. So not a lot of it is going to the
Right.
principal, but some of it, you know,
Right.
I mean, it really starts, you know, after 10 years, you can really start seeing a lot more that's going towards the principal. After 15
Sure.
years, you know, things like that. So it's always nice if it's on the one hand, if it's an older one, but then
Right.
you're liable to have the higher interest rate.
Correct.
So in this
Yeah.
case, you know, it's fairly new, which is to be expected that you have the lower interest rate. So that's great. So you ended up with 2 PMLs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had to talk to two
Okay.
PMLs because even on Abraham, though he could easily fund it on his side, or Deal No Deal, which is the JV with my company, they also are using one of the PMLs.
Right. Okay. And so are both of the PMLs, are they just being paid interest, or are they given a joint venture in the project as well?
Just interest. They're pure
Just-
PML.
Okay. So in
Not
some
PML.
cases, right. In some cases, it might just be that you're actually joint venturing with them. In this case, it was just straight PML, 1% interest, simple interest a month.
Right. Right. Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's the first deal, and but yeah, if you have any questions before we go to the second deal.
Right. Well, congratulations. I mean, you know, for your first deal, it sounds like, you know, you did everything that we talked about right, and you ended up with a sub two that has cash flow. So I think that's great. And 2 PMLs on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
So
you.
perfect. Okay. So
Yeah, we spoke and talk about relationships. The day before we opened escrow, I had just met the title officers and the attorney in a local real estate probate workshop that they were doing, talking about connections. So, you
perfect.
know,
Yeah.
you just get out in the community meeting, like, hey, I met you. Oh, this is your deal. Okay. It just adds to relational building. So when I spoke to the lawyer, he remembered me, and it was nice, because he's the one doing the deed of trust and promissory note. And so, we're just talking to make sure everything is okay. And then he says, I don't do the probate anymore. When I used to do it, but my colleague who does it, next time I have any probate calls or something, I'll send those deals your way. I was like, okay, thanks.
Making connections.
Another connection that could be another future lead.
Right. So it sounds to me like, a big help was Arnie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you got to find a deal to joint venture with him so that you can give back to him. So thank you, Arnie, for all the giving that you've done for the community.
Yeah. And he's so kind that at the beginning I offered to JV with him, and he said, no, I want you to have it. And very kind of him. And he did the same thing. If you want to go into the second deal.
Yeah. Let's jump into the second deal. So the first one was a family house. So what's happening with the second one?
So I'm like on, now I'm on adrenaline. I'm like, oh, first deal, and I'm all excited. And I was like, okay, I'm happy. And I'm just scrolling Facebook and stuff, and somebody posts another deal. Well, the first one was from the Unicorn Agent, but somebody posted a deal in Little Rock, and I'm thinking, Little Rock. I look at the address. I'm like, that's not far from my house. I was like, wait, it's another one in my backyard potentially, So I called the guy right away. I looked at all the details. I even drove over there, and then the guy's like, yeah, it was two Subto guys who had bought it. One's from Colorado, one's here local, and the local he does surgical stuff. He's so busy. The guy in Colorado, he's got a wholesaling business. He's like, we haven't put it up for rent. We try to wrap it, but we haven't tried to do the LTR thing on it. So we're just trying to get rid of it, recover our money out. That was this kind of scoop on it. So I was like, well, let me talk to Arnie. So let me get the man who has the better gut than I do right now, to give me his feel for it. So Arnie, next day, now we had just seen each other the day before at the other property. Next day, Thursday, he meets me at this other property,
He is Superman.
Yeah, and he meets me there. We look around, and he's like, "Oh man, this is good." Now this property doesn't need no rehab or nothing. Just maybe a little bit of touch up here and there, $2,500 worth of it, but it does by the time the loan balance, mortgage balance was 269. The two Subto students want about 30,000 because they had paid about $22,000 worth of arrears. It's a VA
Mhm.
loan, 3.125. The PITI is 1725, and it can rent up to $2,300 to $2,500. But they want that 30,000 back, so it puts it at around 300,000. Not including TC or closing costs.
Mhm.
So they were upfront about it. And so there is some spread, even if you borrow the 30,000, again, using the same principle, $300,
Right.
1725, you get up to 2,025. If you rent it at 2,300 or 2,500, you want to be realistic, maybe go on the low end, get 2,300. So another $200, $300 cash flow, positive cash flow lead. But this house is much nicer in a great neighborhood. And when Arnie and I looked at it, he's like, this is a good deal. And then again, same thing, pitched it to Deal No Deal. Same process, took it through the whole rigmarole and took it all the way to Abraham. Uh, and we all agreed that it was a little bit tighter than our liking,
Mhm.
but for the quality of the house, the location, for the 3.125 interest rate, all the other factors,
Right.
depreciation and all, another great one. So Abraham he basically said he gave his approval to his team. So it was a second deal now I'm working with Molly and her team on.
Perfect. So, let me ask, did you think about asking the Sub 2 students whether they would be the PML?
Oh, the ones who own it?
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for, that's what the classic when we're talking to sellers. It's like, okay, so you need $30,000. Great. What are you going to do with that $30,000? Would you rather invest it and make a little money on that?
No, they didn't want to. They wanted to recover the
Sure.
money out of it. They didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Would have been nice if they would have
Yeah.
been the PML, right?
Yeah, they would have been the bank would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you went and you got a PML lined up for this one as well?
Yeah. So
Same
once
process,
Abraham
same
approved it,
person?
I'm sorry?
Is it the same person doing the
No, no,
PML?
no. So I spoke to them last week, and their name is Sean, first name only. But super nice guy. He's in this case, this PML has 10, 12 properties already of their own. So imagine on the other side, I'm like, make sure I don't say anything stupid, because they
Yeah.
can call my bluff, right? So point in that is you gain all this experience, and one of the things Pace talks about is in one of the skill you have to learn is raising capital.
Yes.
So I'm kind of on the way, quote unquote, with these smaller deals, because he who controls the gold, Pace
Yes.
to say, controls the outcomes, right?
Yes.
So it's definitely a great experience learning how to basically market yourself in one sense to show that you know what you're talking about, the deal, your numbers, you're going to say what you're going to do. Here's your backup plan. Here's your exit strategy. Here's what's going to happen. Things go south. You have to learn all this. You got to learn the investor lingo, every part of it. You got to see it from their side, not just your selfish side. It's like, please give me your money so I can make
Yes.
the deal work. You got to look at it from all interests. And so great experience.
Yeah, and it really educates you to look at the deal from all the angles, like you said, because a lot of times people are looking at it and they say, oh, wow, this is going to be great cash flow. And like you said, they forget to factor in the fact that they're going to be using PML money. Well,
Right.
where is that money coming from? And the other thing is, on a sub 2 deal, then you're going to be adding in your own insurance. Well,
Right.
insurance costs more for us than it does for an individual homeowner that lives in the house, right? So, like in my area, I know I got to add on another $100. Doesn't sound like much, but when you add $100 here and you add this there and you add that there, and
Adds
all of
up
a
real
sudden
fast.
you were going to have $500, and all of a sudden it's down to 200, right?
Right.
As long as it still cash flows and you're looking at that property as future potential of that property, it's still a good deal. I try to look at them and say, what would they be for the long-term rental? Would they
Yeah.
break even or positive? But I'm looking at doing midterm rentals for veterans, and that's worked
Okay.
out really well for me. So we'll talk about that on a future podcast. But it's a way of it increases the rents.
Right.
It also helps veterans that are looking for a room. We furnish, midterm. It's furnished rooms. We take care of the utilities and everything. And now we've made connections. We're working directly with the VA and different placement agencies. So it's just I'm super excited about that, which is why I've got the Veterans in Foreclosure going on. That's the brand I'm building. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on today. My goal is to have a bunch of people that have either used PMLs or that are the PMLs that have had some success, that we can talk about the specifics. How can somebody else replicate this, instead of just talking about, well, you just need to get other people's money and other people's experience and other people's credibility. That all sounds great, but it's hard to execute. So you've given us a game plan that people can follow, even if they're brand new as you were, which is perfect. So obviously you are working the Arkansas area. So if somebody needs to reach out to you, I see you've got your @ symbol there. And what's the best platform to do that on?
Yeah, they can reach out to me at that Instagram handle, or they can find me on Facebook. My name, under my name, Kunal Khatri. And those two are the best ways to reach out. And then I'm happy to help any place that I either left a gap in these two stories, or people are in a similar situation. They want to borrow my experience and say, hey, what did you say? What did you do? More specifically, I know we gave a rundown. I'll be more than glad to share. And in that same vein, we pitched a multifamily, if I may say real quick, to Bo and Abraham. But Abraham said he doesn't do multifamily, so I pitched it to Bo only. And next day he was emailing me. He's like, where is this deal? You send me the call. We're ready to move. Well, unfortunately, in that circumstance, my first one, I just dove in because a friend of mine from California who knew I lived in Arkansas, who's in Subto, Tara Gutierrez, she was going to be my partner on that deal, JV together. She was the one who sent the lead. And I suggested to her, sharing that experience, I was like, let's pitch it.
Perfect.
Let somebody scrutinize, poke holes at it. And once we felt the confidence, same principle again of Bo, then we're like, wholesaler. Well, he had like 60 something inquiries, and it was gone just like that.
Right.
So, but we learned a lot. Yes. This was not it hurt. It was painful. It was like, oh man, how could we have called him earlier? What could we have done different? How much could we have wired him? But we learned. We're like, oh. And then the next day, Abraham sends me, Alexis Morgan, his partner on some of his businesses, who's going to be at the mastermind. She's like, oh, I'm interested in buying multifamily, Kunal. Abraham told me you were trying to pitch him that, but let me know next time. So out of the seemingly no outcome, all these outcomes came out.
Yeah. So you need 10 more of those is what the community is telling you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that kind of answers the questions I had today. So I really appreciate you being here, and I hope this has been helpful for everybody in the Subto community. So
yeah, thanks, Sean, for having me. I appreciate you and all that you're doing for the veterans.
Thank you. Now let's play a little music and rock out. I love this music track. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.